chess friends, and welcome to Azarov's chess channel, and welcome to my best chess games of all time series. So in this series we follow the best of the best chess games that have been ever played in chess history, and today I wanted to show you a very nice game played by the legendary Garry Kasparov back in 1981 against Ulf Andersson. So Ulf Andersson was a very respected chess player. He's a grandmaster from Sweden. He was very respected back in the 80s, and in 1981 Garry Kasparov was only 18 years old, so he had still to battle against the Wolves, against Belyavsky, Spassky, and many of these top grandmasters. So he had to make his breakthrough somehow, and we all know that Garry Kasparov will become in 1985 the youngest world champion in chess history. So that's why here I think was also a very important tournament, this Tilburg tournament. It was played in the Netherlands, as I said, in 1981, and I wanted to show you also these sharks that played really in this very nice tournament. We have here, as you can see, Alexander Belyavsky took the tournament with 7.5 points. We have Petrosyan, Portic, Timan, Ljubojevic, also very powerful grandmaster. Andersson here, he was even in front of Garry Kasparov. We have Boris Spassky only with 5.5 points. Kasparov only on the 8th rank here with 5.5 points. So Sonko and Bent Larsen. So see how strong this tournament were. In this tournament, really the top grandmasters were playing. But as I always like to say, these losing games or not winning tournaments is also an important part of your career, probably, because you see Garry Kasparov maybe wasn't satisfied with this particular outcome of this tournament, but then he maybe tried even harder and really became the youngest world champion in chess history. So all of the respect, of course, for Garry Kasparov. And today I wanted to show you a great game. I think it was in the so-called Nimzo-Indian, counter-Nimzo-Indian setup, and this A3 line that Garry Kasparov will play in this game will be named after Garry Kasparov eventually, after in the chess history. So it's called the Kasparov line. Although I think Kasparov deserves maybe even more names in openings, because maybe he was not the best of theoreticians, and the problem is when we have a later stage, then it's of course much harder to have your name in some openings, because basically back in maybe in the 20s or the 30s some of these openings were invented. So you see it's really hard to have a name in particular lines of particular openings. But I still think that Garry Kasparov should have more names maybe in some King's Indian lines, because he was really a great King's Indian player, and I think he deserves that because he was really one of the best chess players in history. But that's only my opinion. I have some mixed feelings about Garry Kasparov. I really think that he's really one of the best chess players in history, even the best in history, because he was staying on this very nice and top level through 20 years, and that's why he deserves here to be on our chess list with his best chess games of all time. So let's see the game. As said, we have the Tilburg tournament in 1981. Here Kasparov opens with the move d4, knight on f6, c4. We have e6, and now knight on f3. The counter Nimzo-Indian, and now it transposed into the Queen's Indian defense with b6. Black's idea is also to delay a little bit this bishop on b4 move, because we would love, of course, white to play knight on c3. Then we can play our own main idea to pin the knight with the bishop on b4, and then with the bishop on b7, because then the knight would be pinned. We would then have a control of this e4 square. And here Kasparov plays this Kasparov line with the move a3. This is now this preventing idea, not allowing this bishop on b4 idea at all. It's a good idea, but it's a little bit, sometimes it's sort of a losing tempo move, because you have problems. Now you have basically played with an outside pawn. You haven't participated in the attack for the center immediately. So you see, there is also a good thing about this move. There's also a bad thing about this move. You can meet this move with the move d5 immediately, challenging now white center. Of knight on c3, you can try something like bishop on e7. So it now transposes into sort of a, I don't know, pseudo Queen's Gambit declined with the move a3. Okay, but as I said, here you have at least prevented this bishop on b4 idea, but still black can develop fast here with some castling and with some pawn breakthrough possibilities, even with the move c5. So here after a3, bishop on b7 was played, and now knight on c3 played by Kasparov. And now maybe Andersson plays, well, I don't want to say it's a mistake or an inaccuracy, but it's something that breaks really the principle in chess, and it's playing with the same piece twice in an opening without securing the king and similar ideas. You see, you have already played with your knight on f6, you're now playing it on e4, so now Garry Kasparov has to decide. There's also this line, you can try bishop on d2, it's a very popular line now these days. After knight takes on d2, you can take even queen on d2, or you can take knight on d2 and really have a powerful control of the center with the move e4, because you see we're covering this e4 square with both of these knights. So that's why here in the continuation Kasparov took immediately the knight on e4. We have bishop on e4, and this bishop on e4 of Andersson is sort of a positional idea, because it's most of the times white is trying to play g3 and then bishop on g2, and then black would have sort of a positional play, always waiting white to move the knight and simply trading off this light square bishops and go into an equalized middle game. But in the continuation, Garry Kasparov played a very interesting idea, knight on d2, kicking away the bishop. And let's see now possible continuations. If you try bishop on b7, it's already dangerous, because we can play e4 immediately. You see how well centralized this knight is, and this knight is supporting both of these pawns, controlling really this pawn majority here in the center. After potential d5, if you want to crack the position, of course, then c takes d5. After e takes d5, simply e5. This would be a very nice positional advantage. We can always play something like f4, supporting this outposted pawn here on e5. And if you try to break the position with c5, then bishop on d3, it's not a problem. If you take, as said, it's not such a problem to lose this pawn in the center, because these two pawns would be our main weakness, and still we have possibilities to continue here with f4, g4, even f5 and similar ideas, castling, maybe something like b4, bishop on b2 attacking. So it will be very, very annoying pawn majority attack here of white. Black would be probably losing this game. So if you try something like knight on c6 to challenge, then knight on f3, again with the same idea, c takes d4, we have now similar position, but now bishop on b5 would be very, very dangerous. After rook on c8, then knight on d4, and again we can still play something like f4. You see we have a very annoying pin. We can support this pin with queen on a4 and similar ideas. So after knight on d2 here, that's why Andersson decided to go bishop on g6. But there is also a problem now about this bishop on g6. The bishop is, it seems like, on a very nice diagonal, but one of the principles while playing against the bishop is simply get out of the way. It's nothing, I think, hard to memorize. So you see this bishop has a good diagonal, so that's why we are trying to get out of this diagonal, not placing any pieces or pawns on this diagonal. If that happens, then this bishop will be very powerful. Now you see the problems of this bishop in the continuation of the game. Here Kasparov played now g3. Now he wants, of course, to occupy this long diagonal and have a very powerful control. Although this bishop on c1 is a little bit blocked out by its own knight here, but you see how Garry Kasparov will continue here. He develop all of his pieces with a very nice pawn sacrifice in the center. So it will be really a great positional move that Garry Kasparov will play. I'll highlight this moment when it comes to that, of course. Here knight on c6 was played by Andersson, and now e3, supporting simply here this pawn on d4. Knight on b3 seems of course good, but it always can be met with something like d5. And if you try knight on f3 to cover this pawn on d4, then you have again blocked out this diagonal for your bishop, which you don't want to do, of course. And here e3 is perfectly fine. Now we have a very nice healthy pawn structure, and here still with the possibility to play on a very nice diagonal. So here a6 was played by Ulf Andersson, and here is a tricky line. If you try something like d5 immediately, then queen on a4 is very dangerous for black. If you try queen on d7, then simply taking, and here you see bishop on b5. I don't know how you're gonna protect this knight on c6. So that's why here Andersson found a very interesting idea. He played first the move a6, preventing always this bishop on b5 idea, and Kasparov simply continued with b5. Expanding now on the queen side, you see we have now a very nice connected pawn structure here. We have also advantage of space here. We have the possibility to find some good squares for our pieces. In the continuation, b5 was played, and here c takes b5 and a takes b5. You cannot take immediately bishop on b5 because you don't have the connection between the queen and the rook. Then knight on b4 would be idea, and this would be a problem now for white because you have also a weakened pawn here on a3. So that's why Kasparov played bishop on b2, and now black is forced really to go with this knight here on a7. Here h4 played by Kasparov. Now we have solved our problems on the queen side. Now it's time to attack on the king side here with the move h4. You see this bishop is a little bit endangered. I cannot find good squares. You see for the bishop f5 is also dangerous. It can be always with g4. Of course you cannot go on e4, you cannot go on d3, you cannot go on c2, and you see this bishop is really useless here. It's a very nice positional play here by Garry. h6 was played, and now d5. Now this is this highlighted moment that I wanted to show you. Garry Kasparov now realized that this knight is really out of game. It's unbelievable how he managed to do that, because of course Ulf Andersson probably thought that he has solved these problems on the queen side, but here with this move d5, now the position will really get open for both of these bishops by simply pawn sacrifice. So here e takes d5, bishop on g2. So it comes now with an attack. You have to defend this pawn, c6. If you lose the pawn, then this bishop's activity will be too much to handle, I think, here for black. So as I said, c6. Now Kasparov simply castles, securing his king, and now f6. You see, black cannot castle here with the move bishop on e7 because you're losing your g7 pawn. So with this pawn sacrifice on d5, now Garry Kasparov has really this powerful diagonals of these bishops. They're aiming all over the board, and I would not love to play here from black's perspective. I just love to flip the board sometimes. Look at this position from black's perspective. I basically wouldn't know what to do. There's also a weak square here on c5. We can also play with a simply minority attack with this pawn here against the bishop, pushing this bishop even further, and really many attacking possibilities for white. I don't see clear attacking possibilities here for black. So great game by Garry so far. In the continuation here, f6 was played, probably the idea to play bishop on e7 and finally secure the king. But now Kasparov, of course, finds the move rook on e1, because there is this principle, of course, if the king stays in the center, just open the center and try to attack the king. It's nothing special, nothing fancy, as I always like to say. Simple idea, simple threat, but with a huge impact in the continuation of the game. So bishop on e7, here Andersson is trying to cover himself, but now queen on g4. You see how this h4 move really forced black to do this h6 move, and this d5 move forced black to do this f6 move. So now this bishop becomes really a problem. It was, as I said, really an object of white's attack. What to do here? In the game, king on f7 was played, and now Garry Kasparov simply pushed away this bishop. h5, you have only one square, bishop on h7. Here, e4. Now finally cracking the position. Now the position will get open for both of these bishops. D takes e4. If you try something like, I don't know, rook on e8, then e takes d5, again opens the position here for the bishop. So as I said, here it's already a much better position here for white. In the continuation, d takes e4 was played, and now bishop on e4. We want to, of course, get rid of the bishop, because the bishop is the key defender of like squares. You see, of the square on g6. It can also sometimes be very good defensive here on the square e6. So that's why when your opponent has problems on particular squares, then get rid of the defender of the squares, and it's of course, as I said, this bishop on h7. So bishop on e4, knight takes on e4, and now knight on c8. You see how Andersson has now problems to get back the knight somehow into the game, because Garry Kasparov played first on this queenside attack, and now Andersson realizes that he doesn't have so many defenders around the king, so that's why he's trying desperately now to bring maybe the king here on d6. But of course, Garry Kasparov, one of the best attackers, is not allowing this types of scenario. He plays on a simple idea also in chess. It's the idea of playing with his last active piece. So what piece hasn't participated in the attack so far? It's of course the rook from on a1. So we have now the bishop on a very active square, the knight on a very active square on e4, the queen very active on g4, the rook perfectly placed here on the e-file. So of course, as I said, the last active piece that hasn't participated in the attack, rook from a to d1. So you see how Garry Kasparov really applies all of these principles, basic principles in chess, and I think although this is really one of the best chess games in history, this was also one of the most instructive chess games in history. So this pawn sacrifice in the center of the board, just in order to open the position to activate all of these pieces, very, very nice. So here rook on a7 was played by Andersson. He sees that he has maybe some problems on the 7th rank, trying maybe to play move d5 and cover with this rook, and also covering here this d7 pawn. There is this problem if you try to play d5 immediately, then you have a very nice calm move, knight on d2, and if you try king on g8 to escape, then queen on e6. If you try here to play rook on f8, then you have queen on g6, or even much more powerful is here queen on e6. You have to go here with the king on e8, but now queen on c6, and you simply lose material. You can also lose this rook here on a8. So I see after this rook from a to d1, this d5 move, it seems that it would be a perfect move to kick away the knight, but with this calm move knight on d2, you have really no problems at all. So here rook on a7, as said, was played, and now knight takes on f6. Now Garry Kasparov realized when you have the pieces on the best squares, on the most active squares, now he cuts the position here with the nice slice, and knight takes on f6, a brutal sacrifice. G takes f6 was played, and now the queen comes, of course, g6. You see the light square problems around the black's king are too much to handle here. After queen on g6, king on f8 was played, and now bishop on c1, preparing bishop takes on h6. If it you can also try here rook on h7. Here Garry Kasparov could have even played a much more attractive line with rook takes on e7. If you take with the queen, then bishop on f6. If you cover, then we take first the rook here after queen on g6, then h takes g6. If you try d5, then bishop on d4, and then after that bishop on c5 would be very dangerous, activating the rook here on the e-file. Again, it would be, I think, a completely winning endgame here for white. So, but in the game, Kasparov finds another but also great idea, bishop on c1, simply attacking this h7 weakness. We have d5. You see now finally Andersson improves the position, advanced the pawn. You see how much trouble with his pawn on the d-file Ulf Andersson had in the continuation of the game, and now Kasparov played rook on d4, activating now all of his pieces. You see rook on g8 is not possible because we'll take immediately bishop on h6. So see, we can always take this pawn on h6. It's not about taking this pawn, it's about having this threat of taking the pawn on h6. But first, of course, Garry Kasparov, one of the most talented players back in the 80s, now first improves the position of his pieces, rook lift on d4, and then rook on g4, of course, with the idea to creating some dangerous threats on g7. Knight on d6, you see, finally comes this knight in the defense, but it's too late. Sorry, Ulf Andersson. It's, of course, now Gary's time to attack. Again, rook on g4, and now knight on f7. But as I said, it's too late because now Garry Kasparov plays a beautiful bishop on h6 here. If you see, let's see possible continuation. If you try knight takes on h6, then of course queen on g7, and you lose the rook, and then after that you're losing the knight. If you take with the rook here on h6, then you get checkmated on g8. So very nice sacrifice. Bishop on h6, we have king on e8, and now bishop on g7, and in this position Ulf Andersson resigned. So what are the possible continuations? If you try rook on g8 to escape, then h6 is the monster move, because you cannot take with the knight because of this very annoying pin by the queen. So it will be really a boa constrictor here, and in the continuation, of course, we can play simply h7, h8, and even promote the queen. Okay, great game, I think, by the legendary Garry. He was playing really dynamic chess in the 80s. As I said, in 1985 he became world champion, and let's see really the standings. Although, as I said, it was maybe one of his best tournaments. He had only 5.5 points out of the possible 11, but in this very tough tournament, he at least had 50%, and after that he became better than all of them, and deserves, of course, all of our respect, and deserves to be really on our best chess games of all time playlist. Okay, I hope you enjoyed this game. Meanwhile, you can watch my other best chess games of all time series, and you can also watch my commented chess games played by computers, in which I show you Alpha Zero, Lila C0, and many more. And you can also watch my current chess games, in which I publish some games that are played these days in some tournaments, and you can check it out with some Vikings and many more. And you can also subscribe to my channel if you like this content. Thanks you for watching, guys, and chess is the best, of course.